And welcome to the January 28th, 2021 meeting of the Town of Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission, POCD Committee. It is now 7:05 p.m. and the meeting is called to order. We'll start with number one on the agenda, Francisco.
Okay, thank you. Now I will share my screen. And I take it everyone can see my screen now?
Yes.
Good, good. That's a good place to start. Okay, we have a lot of ground to cover this evening and a lot of work to do over the next month, and I'll try to walk you through that quickly. So tonight's agenda is give you an update on where we're at, and I'll very quickly go over our draft plan. We do have a draft plan, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And then we will get into the details of the goals we established at the last meeting, that being the strategies that help us achieve those goals and the action items that comprise those strategies. And that is for all the topic areas. So I'm going to try to keep things moving so we can get through it. If we have time, we'll once again revisit the future land use plan. We looked at it very late in our meeting last time. I'll put it in front of you again, and then we'll talk about our next steps before we adjourn. The schedule, very, very important because we are getting down to the wire and maybe even beyond the wire. So here we are at the end of January, and we have a process that we have to follow to remain compliant with statute. And so I'm working backwards in given where we're at to see what we could do. And so let me walk you through that real quick. By February 24th, we need to submit a draft of our plan to council and to MetroCog. That's required. And I would add to that to the first selectman's office. They will have 30 days to review that and get us comment, and we will revise the plan according to their comments. That being said, you as the commission, this is your plan and you can receive those comments. You're not obliged to amend the plan exactly as advised by council or MetroCog, provided we don't have a deficit with respect to meeting the statutory requirements of the plan. So that puts us at, by the end of March, by March 26th to be exact, we then need to have a draft of the plan made public, posted to the town's website, and filed in the town clerk's office for anyone who wants to come in and review it. We then have 35 days. We need to notice it. We need to schedule the public hearing, and it can be no sooner than 35 days after we file with the town clerk's office. We need to notice that meeting, and then we bring it to public hearing, and basically you vote to approve it. And hopefully we have a majority of people on board and not too many people saying they don't approve of any of the recommendations of the plan. That gets us out to the end of April. Now, we've got an extension through March on the plan, and what I'm hoping is that once we file a draft in the town clerk's office, that will constitute your plan, even if it is not approved at public hearing. That will constitute a working draft of your plan, and if the state and their office, OPM, Office of Policy and Management, inquires, we do have a draft plan to provide them. And we are not required to file that plan for 60 days following adoption. So we do have a window to work in there, but we're obviously further behind than where we would like to be. And we have no time to waste in getting there, and we need to stay on this schedule to get this thing submitted within a reasonable window of time to remain in compliance. Any questions on that? And I'll make sure we get there, but it does require decision making on your part as a body. Okay, your draft POCD. Let me switch to that document. I just want to give you a real quick overview of it, and there'll be plenty of time for you to review it in detail. And so we we do have a document with a lot of work has been done on it, and can't expand this so you can see it. There we go. And it's a decent looking document. It does reflect the fact that we've been at this for a greater part of the year, and it shows that we have done a lot of work, believe it or not. I know it's been, because it's been so episodic, our work and our engagement, it feels like maybe we haven't really gotten any traction, but the amount of work that we have to show for in the document would say otherwise. So the document has a lot of really important content, and I think I like the way it's shaping up. But we do have one major deficit that we're going to try to address tonight, and that is when we get to what needs to be done, right? So we've done a great job of describing the landscape as it is, the existing conditions, the trends, what we've heard from the community, what our goals are, our vision. We've got all that down. Now we need to figure out how do we achieve these goals, and that's where the work is to be done, and that's what's missing from the document. Okay. Any questions about that? Good. I can keep moving. All right. Now, with respect to that, we had a really productive session in December, hammering out these goals, and I feel very good about our working goals, and we can wordsmith a little bit as we continue, but we've got a solid foundation. Now the question is, how do we achieve those goals? And I want to walk you through each section of our document, each topic area. We're going to go through it one by one. And we'll start with economic development. It's our first section of the document. And as a reminder, our goal is to, and there it is at the top of the page, is to foster a vibrant economy that provides residents and visitors with access to goods, services, and employment opportunities while diversifying the town's property tax base. So our question is, how do we get that done? All right, I've put together a number of strategies, what I would call recommended strategies and actions based upon the feedback we received from our focus group meetings, our discussions, the trends that we're seeing, best practices in other communities, some of the recommendations of the prior plan, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where these recommendations come from. Now, for each one of these goals, I've identified 4, 5, 6 or so major strategies. And each one is comprised of one or more specific actions that need to be taken to support that strategy. What I would like to do this evening is for us to basically yay or nay, right? Yes or no, up or down. Yes, this strategy is good, or no, get rid of it. And then furthermore, how much of a priority is it? And if it's yes, it may be yes, but it needs to be changed in this way. So I want to hear that. And then what kind of priority is it? Really important, medium, or low, right? And that'll help us figure out how to put together, how to prioritize things in the plan. Any questions on that? Okay, rapid fire. Okay, so the first strategy to help us achieve the economic development goal would be for the town to be more proactive in collaborating with the local business community, right? To ensure that it's responsive to the needs of the local business community. Does that sound like an appropriate strategy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
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 High, medium, or low priority?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Good. Good. This works. Just shout it out, just like you are. All right. And then see, I've got this clever trick where I hide the rest from you so you don't jump ahead of me. See that? Okay. So how do we do that? Well, correct me if I'm wrong. You have an economic development commission, correct?
And we do have a meeting, a first selectmen's committee.
A committee of the first selectmen?
Yeah, that includes business leaders and myself. And we meet once a month.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, but it's not, we haven't been meeting for the past several months.
Well, obviously. Who does that committee meet with? What's it called? What's the formal name?
First Selectmen's Business and Industrial Business and First Selectman Business and
An industry something?
Industry
Okay,
Committee,
okay,
FSBIC,
okay. FBIC.
FSBIC, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and it meets monthly, and does it meet internally, or does it meet with members of the business community and the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, they're included also.
Oh, good. So you're doing that already. So we might just say that this is a priority and you should continue it, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'll take care of that. And so we agree it's a good idea. How important is this? How much of a priority is it that this committee remain active?
Medium.
Okay, the world's not going to end if it doesn't, but it's all right. We'll keep going. All right, you don't have an economic development coordinator. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We do.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just hired during the pandemic.
What's that? Oh, okay. All right, that's a new hire. Okay. All right, so you have one. All right. Is there anything is there any type of support that coordinator would need to do their job or do a better job?
He's getting support pretty much.
Okay, good.
If I may just interject, this is Jonathan Formicella from Town Council. The individual that was hired to be a economic development coordinator, it was envisioned as it's a trial period. It's not intended to go on forever, because there's been a debate in town over the last few years, maybe a little bit longer, about whether the town needs an economic development coordinator, how that person's paid. So during this time, it was a trial period to see if we should have one, if we should keep this person on, that type of thing.
So maybe our recommendation would be to review the effectiveness of that position and considering instituting it as a full-time position if it's found to be effective.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would say that's acceptable and under the same framework that Town Council and the First Selectman created the position for.
Okay. I'll get all that language on there. I'm obviously not going to do it now, but
I would like to add something to that. That's almost like a high priority. That person should be recommended to be full-time and put more time into the economics of the town.
okay. Is everyone comfortable with making that a high priority to have a permanent full-time position in that role?
Based on the trial? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. All right, I'll make sure the language adequately reflects that, based upon the success during the trial period. Okay, the next strategy. So that's the first strategy, is just doing a better job being responsive to the business community. The next strategy is to develop information materials and promotional materials that are designed to attract new businesses to Monroe. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have basically like marketing brochures for your community, do you, with respect to economic development?
We had a video, I think it was a year or two old already.
And we created a new brochure last year.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So new brochure. Are there any other needs in this area?
No.
Do you think the town would benefit from better promotional materials and promotion of itself for economic development?
Well, it's hard to know because we don't really have a metric on how successful the video in brochures are. It's difficult to know how effective that was. I mean, it sounds good, and I definitely think we should offer it, but it's really hard to kind of know how effective it was.
Right. I can tell you there's a community in Vermont, I think Claremont, Vermont, which clearly not a real big community. I don't know where it is. They did, I don't know how many thousands of dollars of advertising, but I would hear them for a year straight, their ads on NPR, and be hit with their banners on websites. So they were, clearly you can always be more aggressive, and the question is whether or not there's a return on investment for that. Right, so given the fact you already have some materials, do we need to identify this as a strategy, or should we say the town should continue to develop? Should this be an ongoing thing?
Well,
Yeah.
I think it kind of piggybacks with the economic development coordinator. If we can support what we're advertising and what we're trying to bring to the town, then I think it works. But if we're going to draw people in and they're going to be met with resistance, then it's ineffective, in my opinion.
Okay, so that connects to maybe zoning and permitting and a bunch of other issues at that end. All right, so we'll keep that, and then maybe a medium priority, because you already
Not trying to convolute it, but they do go hand in hand, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So part of that strategy would be, is there any collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce on any of that, or with the state, with the DECD from the state on promotional materials? Because there are resources, there are partnerships here. And I wonder, is the town doing this all by itself or with partnerships?
Yeah, by itself, by and large.
Yeah, when you get partnership, there's always strings attached to it, so by itself.
Am I wrong to say, isn't the chairman of our Economic Development Committee also a member of the Monroe
Yeah.
Chamber of Commerce?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And we're also and they're also tied into the Connecticut Tourism Bureau as well. So if there's anything going on in town, one of their members brings it to the tourism committee, and they also advertise in terms of events or things we have going on.
Okay. All right, so maybe that's a low priority because those are already in place. All right, good. We'll keep blasting through this. We had a lot of comments about the town needing more entertainment venues and cultural institutions, places to go for an event or a show or entertainment. And I wonder if you think that's a segment that should be specifically targeted by the town.
I do.
Track. Anyone, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it was all at once, I didn't hear it.
I'm a yes.
Okay.
I'm a yes.
What kind of priority is that?
I think it's high. There's been a lot of success with kind of the small stuff that we have done, and I think moving forward with it might be a good idea.
I agree with Ryan.
I agree with Ryan too.
Aye, yes.
Me too.
Okay, great. You guys are doing great here. All right. And if I'm totally missing something, like glossing over it, like, hey, why didn't he talk about this? Just bring it up, shout it out, and let me know, and we'll add it to the list here. And in case you're panicking, like this is the only time I'm going to see this list, and then I'm not going to see anything again until I get the final plan. What I'm going to do immediately after this is I'll send out a PDF and this Excel file. I'll send that to Rick and Georgia for distribution to all of you guys, and you can take your time with it, mark it up, add notes, and send it back to me. But because I know that it's much better to do classwork in the classroom rather than do homework at home, we're going to try to get through it this evening. But I'll give you an opportunity to have more time with it. Okay. All right. The third strategy is to take actions that are necessary as feasible to reduce the amount of time it takes for a permit, any kind of permit, to be
Yes
issued.
and high.
Anyone
Yes
else?
and high. Going
Whatever
right.
category is over high.
And I know that the town is working towards streamlining. This is an ongoing thing, so I'm aware of that, and there are new systems being put in place. But we don't want to keep our eyes off the ball, is what it comes down to. Okay. So the first action item in support of that is to have the Economic Development Commission, and now that you have a coordinator as well, we would rope in the coordinator to this responsibility. Work with the planning and zoning departments and building departments to provide a step-by-step guidance documents, and online instruction that assists new business and applicants in navigating the permitting and licensing process. Do you have anything similar to that right now?
Do we have anything, Rick?
Yeah, just a normal planning and zoning narrative on the webpage. So that needs to be beefed. That needs to be beefed up.
Okay.
And we streamlined the timeline that it takes from application to getting a permit.
Well, this is the first step, is to help an applicant understand how the system works and to make sure they start in the right place and they don't miss something.
Yep, like
you really
a
want
quick
to,
start guide.
yeah, go ahead.
So like a quick start guide, something that somebody could walk into the town hall and walk out and know what their marching orders are. A lot of the complaints I've been hearing is they get their information fragmented. They get told certain things and they come back and they get another piece of the puzzle, then another piece and another piece, and it drives people crazy.
Yeah, just the
I've heard
amount
the
of
same thing.
recent, the amount of recent Facebook posts I've seen of people just saying, "How do I get a pool permitted?" lately is like just crazy. They're going to Facebook instead of coming to the town and trying to figure it out.
Okay. High, medium, or low?
Hi.
Aye.
As well. Yeah.
Done. The next action is to have the planning and zoning department and you and the commission continue to allow for elements of applications such as site plans to be reviewed administratively rather than going to you for every review. And to review, and also for you to review the zoning regulations and administrative practices to identify other types of review that can be handled administratively rather than being referred to you.
That's right.
Basically, are you willing to relinquish a little bit of control for the sake of just getting things moving, is what it comes down to.
I'd like to be briefed at the very least.
Yeah.
I'm with Rob on that. We need to be briefed on that.
We kind of already have a little bit of the staff approval in place.
Yeah.
And Mike, that's what we talked about on Monday.
Francisco, is there any way to make that larger on the screen?
Yeah, well, sure. How's that? Is that better?
I don't know. There it is. Yeah, I can read that now.
Okay, good. Yeah. All right, so yes.
Certain items staff could do, and if the applicant is not satisfied with staff, that's when he should come to us.
Okay. So this isn't a blanket thing, obviously. You have to be very selective about what you think should be handled administratively versus what should come to you. The point here is that we realize there's probably more that staff can sign off on, and probably a little too much coming to you for review right now. And you probably just need to be briefed on applications and approvals, and may not need to be the decision-making body. That staff is probably capable of making some of these decisions. And that would obviously expedite applications.
And I think maybe we could add an item to our agendas, labeled administrative matters and go over them during each meeting.
Right.
That's a good
You
point.
wouldn't rule on them, but you would review them, you would be in the loop, so that if you're seeing a pattern of types of approvals that you're saying, hey, wait a minute, this type of thing really should be coming before us, then you can change the way you do business, that you're not caught off guard by something you see going up one day and say, hey, how come we didn't know about that?
Yeah.
All right, how much of a priority is this?
I think it's high.
I think it's high.
I think it's high.
I agree.
All right, next. The planning and zoning department, building department should basically continue to review their processes to make sure that they're moving towards an online processing of permits to speed things up. So encourage that move to online processing of permits. Rick, can you
Rick, is
update
that
us on?
moving at all?
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
It's Rick. I haven't seen much movement in there in years.
Or it's online, Rick? Where does that stand?
Yeah, we're going with the trade permits after the town council reviews the payment component, and that's going to happen sometime in early February. So the trade permits are going to start first, early February, and then building permits in general will follow.
Who are we paying? Who are we paying?
You're charging. It's a company that facilitates online payments.
Oh, and they're charging us to do that.
Yeah, there's a fee, and the town council's got to approve that, and that's coming up at their next meeting.
What's the name of that company? Do you know?
Angel, I'm guessing.
Rick, I think it's Diamond Elite, isn't
A
it?
Diamond Elite, yeah, okay.
Diamond?
Diamond Elite.
Diamond Elite.
Can you go over that again? I missed it.
Oh,
The
Payment?
the payment arrangement has to go through the town council for authorization for the online permitting. And that's going to take place in February, the town council's next meeting. Once that is authorized, trade permits for plumbing, heating, electrical, et cetera, that goes online first. And then subsequent to that, full permits. So it's ready to go.
When an applicant comes in, it goes online and does everything online and pays online.
They're going to do it at the comfort of their home, Dominic.
Okay.
Payment to entering all the data, who you are, what you want to do.
I believe Stanford has that already online.
Now, Rick, that's trade and building permits. What about zoning permits?
Yeah, that when I said building permit, that will come under that.
Okay. And how soon do you think those might be?
Oh, probably March for the full
Okay.
permit.
Okay. All right. Well, good. So we'll just couch that language. Well, we already have it. Continue to. We'll just emphasize that that's really important. Okay. The next strategy is to review your zoning regulations and revise them as needed to support emerging business practices. We talked about this a decent amount the last meeting, and Will was a real advocate for this, including green businesses, small-scale businesses, home-based businesses. I think the idea here is you just want to make sure that you're not too restrictive and you're not discouraging some of these smaller incubator businesses that people are looking to run or establish in town. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much of a priority is that?
Say
Hi.
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 And I want to be careful not to make 100% of everything high.
Start giving us some bad ideas then.
So if there's something that's just like medium, like, yeah, it's important, but
I'll
we've
make
gotta-
it medium to high, like, cooking a steak.
That's medium well then.
There you go.
Okay. All right, so let's get into the details of that. That starts with you reviewing and amending the zoning regulations to make sure that they're not too restrictive with respect to home-based businesses or even your commercial zones. Are they too restrictive about the types of uses that they allow? Unless you have the answer to this question already, in which case, instead of instructing you to review and amend, we would say, change exactly this about the zoning. Does that make sense?
Not really.
Yeah, as I was saying, not really.
All right, so the question is whether or not you feel, here's the question that needs to be answered, right? Whether or not you think your zoning is too much of a barrier to small businesses, startups, people working out of their homes, people maybe trying to do something untraditional in a space and you don't quite have a use identified and you're turning them away because of that. That's the real question to be answered.
But the way I feel it, there's somewhat of a barrier. But that's the zoning court to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we currently allow home-based businesses.
The question would be whether or not it's too restrictive, if you're discouraging any businesses because you have way too high of a standard or require way too much of a permit, or if you think this is a non-issue, then we just, I put a note there and we move on.
It's a
We're
non-issue.
taking a
pretty much.
proactive approach to it right now. I mean, we have a regulation subcommittee meeting going and we're taking action on that right now.
Okay, so if you don't think you need the plan to help you with this, then we dump that.
I don't
right?
think we do because we're already doing it.
Okay,
I agree with Rob.
Agreed.
all right, good. It's nice to be able to pare this list down a little bit. The next part of that would be to actually work with the Economic Development Commission to see if there's anything else that could or should be done with the zoning and with your commercial and industrial zone standards to better support businesses, emerging businesses, and green businesses. It's
I
very
love this
similar to the
idea,
first
but
one.
We currently don't have a conduit for it.
Go ahead. Sorry, again.
I love this idea, and I was on EDC for a few years, but there seems to never be any continuity between EDC and planning and zoning. It would be great to discuss a way to get the two minds together and kind of discuss that.
And I
That's
think,
the idea here is that
We just met on Monday.
yeah, we're addressing that.
Okay.
So do you want to keep this and say basically continue, we'll call it continue to, because this is something that looks like it's in its nascency, like you're just kind of getting started with this collaborative approach, and maybe we want to support that?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
I want to keep it on the books so we don't forget about it or let it fall back.
Right, but we done that with the Conservation Commission too, the zoning. We allow them to put their input in now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, and
Okay.
so we've been working on that.
Good.
Francisco, my input is, it has not been working. So from your point of view, you should come up with some strategy that makes it work.
The collaboration hasn't been working.
Well, the EDC thing has not been working in town.
The EDC itself as a body.
The EDC working in cooperation with other zoning and other department has not been working,
Okay.
not
All
from
right.
my point of view.
Okay. All right. Okay. I got it.
Francisco,
Okay.
commissioners, hey, this is Georgia. I just wanted to make a point. So the position that we were talking about with EDC that was hired for kind of COVID relief purposes, Bill has worked with our office tremendously. He has been in our office constantly between Rick and myself, getting updates, working on different projects.
Right.
So I think that first time when we talked about EDC working with planning and zoning is really important for specifically this last point that Francisco just made, as far as us continuing those efforts and pushing those boundaries, because what Bill learns from Rick and I goes back to the EDC, and it all works together, it all loops together. So if we want to continue that, we need to make sure that there's a position there that can work for those things.
He's also sat in on the majority of our planning and zoning meetings.
Good. Good.
Right. He's very involved with what we do.
Okay, so that's another reason why you want maybe to have that as a full-time position, because that person could really ensure that collaboration and that communication is there.
And make sure
Okay.
that the two bodies aren't clashing.
Right. Good. Okay, so I have that as a yes and a medium priority, and we'll kind of refer back to the coordinator as being instrumental in that.
Yes.
Okay, next strategy, and we're getting close to the end of economic development. Review the town's practices with respect to optional tax programs and make such modifications as are appropriate to support the goals of the plan. So it's my understanding that right now there are some negotiations that can happen to encourage businesses with respect to tax deferments and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, tax abatement, right.
Yeah, tax abatement, I mean, yeah. So the question is whether or not that wants to be more formalized, if there's more work to do there to expand it. And well, let's dig into, I've only got one action in support of that, and that would be for the first selectman, town council, and board of finance to review the town's policies and practices with respect to those programs and tax abatements, and make modifications as are appropriate to encourage economic development, support the goals of the plan. So just to be more intentional about it, do you see a need for that?
Yeah, that's on the list of the first selectman right now.
Okay, my question is pointed towards Rick. How aggressive can we get with that? And do you see, from your experience, do you see problems or this being problematic with some of the existing businesses looking over and saying, why are we supporting this guy when he has never, given the town a dollar, and, I've been paying all these taxes all these years?
Exactly, Rob. The wording in it right now is somewhat ambiguous, and the wording's got to be correct, and it's got to comply with the state statutes. So it's convoluted right now. First selectman is taking it upon him to work with the town council and the finance board.
All right, so it sounds like we're pointing in the right direction in that it needs to be a more formal policy to make sure it's consistent with what statute allows, and that it's a fair policy. Is that correct?
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, and they're working on that now. Okay, so we'll note the fact that work's being done and that it's important. And I'll just put it at medium since it's being done. Okay. Next strategy, and I believe this is our final strategy. Review the town zoning regulations and make appropriate amendments to incentivize investment and development that revitalizes properties and provides a civic amenity or benefit. And in short, what that's getting at is, do you have enough carrots in your zoning to, let's say you have a development on Route 25 or 111. Are there enough carrots there to incentivize a developer to build out some nice public amenities in exchange for something like a little more density or a little more height or anything like that?
Yeah, we just did it with the mixed use, Francisco.
Okay, so there are incentives with the mixed use right now, is that correct?
Absolutely.
All right, do you think there's room for more work in that area?
Oh, absolutely.
So I'll have a yes. And high, medium, or low priority?
Yeah,
High.
medium high.
Medium.
Is this for the number 6 or 6.1? Oh, I guess, okay.
Well, 6.1, I think, is our only, or no, we got another action. So, yeah, so 6 in general, 6.1 is kind of how do you do it? 6 in general is the big idea, though, is about incentives. All right, we do have one other action for that strategy, and that is to specifically allow, this targets higher density, to specifically allow higher density as an incentive to build community amenities such as civic space, affordable housing, or other community benefits.
No.
Mixed use again, Francisco.
The mixed use covers that.
Yeah, and we're just, we have our first -30G, as you're aware too.
Yeah. So maybe we don't need this particular action. Okay. Oh, this is definitely the last one. See, bouncing all over the place here. Item 7. I think we can all agree on this, right? Is remain proactive about facilitating a productive reuse of Stevenson lumber and Pepper Street industrial parks. Right? Yes.
Yep.
And high, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had one idea regarding that. It would be to create a special development district that a developer could apply on either of those sites or another location in town, that would just provide a lot more flexibility than your B1 or B2 or industrial districts provides. And you would restrict that to really big sites. You know, you couldn't do it on a 1 acre site, 2 acre site, but if you've got 10 or 20 or whatever acres, that you could work with them. And basically what a special development district allows you to create a brand new zone. And you write all the standards in the rules of the zone with the developer, and you come to agreement with them on it. And so it's a real collaborative approach, and it helps ensure that you get what you like out of the site, and that the developer is playing by a set of rules that makes the development feasible.
We're kind of in the middle of that right now.
Yeah, how so? With the back and forth with the developers?
Specifically
the
with
application.
Well, there's an application in front of us.
And the application is for the creation of a new zone to allow the development, is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, Stevenson Business District.
So what you can do is, yeah, you can be more out in front, and you can put that together independently and not just for this developer, right? That can be something that can be applied throughout town. It doesn't have to be unique to that site. And you would just call it, rather than call it, let's say, the Stevenson Lumber District, you'd call it a special development district, and you could use it over at Pepper Street. You could use it anywhere where you have a property that meets the requirements of that district. Like, let's say it has to be located on a state highway, it has to have X amount of acres, et cetera. It has to be in a B1, B2, or industrial zone. Does that make sense?
Could we do that, Rick, with this application?
Yeah, what Francisco is suggesting is another tool, another technique. I used it quite a bit in Shelton with the PDD.
Yeah. It basically,
And I know that Solely Engineering is working on an application specific to design districts for the town of Monroe.
so what you might consider doing is they'll have their ideas on how you should go about it, and you might receive those and basically come up with your own set of rules, your own standards, how you want to do it. And so you could be a step ahead of them in the process instead, is what we're suggesting here.
Well, we have one right now that we have to look at and that we can modify.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think that, well, the one that's up in front of us now is not something that we created.
Right.
The applicant created that. And so,
The
I
question
mean,
is-
basically,
right.
we should be creating one for ourselves that covers all these sites.
yes,
Not just one particular site.
Yes.
That's only covering that one site. So I mean, I could see, Francisco's point that we need to have our own. And we should have our own to cover all the sites, not just like pick one site. But he brought in his own application in his own zone change, right, Rick? That's not us.
Yes. Yeah.
I
So
agree.
rather than react to the applicant, you can get ahead of them, and you can create the standards that you want and tell them, no, this is what we have, and work within what we have, work through what we have. We created a district, and these are the terms, and let's work through that. Rather than have scattered shot districts that applicants are proposing on your behalf.
And I like this idea because it allows us to drive the development to the match the vision that we create for that particular site. But we need to, as a group, create a vision. We've been a little reactive in that category, in that area. But I think if we create a vision, we could design our own zone and we can go from there.
Yeah.
Mike, I think it's something that we should handle in the subcommittee and start working on that.
Well, we have been working with this particular developer on this particular property for over a year. So this has been a collaborative process. This is not something he's just come in from the blue and dropped on us. I mean,
yeah. So what I'm saying,
close.
Leon, you can take all of that work that you've done, Michael, you can take all that work that you've done already and package that up into a district that can be applied anywhere in town, and any applicant can work through that mechanism rather than have it be tied to just one property.
Yeah, I agree with him on that, Mike. I think that if you're going to create another zone like that zone that we're creating now, that we should look at it to where it fits in the whole town, not just and that's what it comes down to. I mean, there's stuff on there that's in Stevenson that we wouldn't want in the whole town.
Now, this, and I only want to spend another minute with this, and we're going to vote it up or down. We got to move on. This is how a special development district works. All you need to do is provide the basic framework. You create a district. It's a floating district. That means it can be applied anywhere in town. You have a property that meets its criteria. you establish a criteria, how big a parcel has to be, whether or not it needs access off of a state road or arterial road, you know, whether or not it needs particular utility service, etc. And then you can identify uses. You don't have to identify uses. And then the rest of the standards can be developed through negotiation with the developer. But you're providing the shell there. And so that you can apply that anywhere in town, and it can be negotiated. All of the design elements that you don't establish with the zoning can be negotiated with the developer. Like what you're doing right now, it's just creating the ability to easily replicate the process you're doing right now at another location in town.
And hey, and Mike, at the next meeting, I will share with you my knowledge of what was done in Shelton. The only caveat in Shelton, it was being used in residential areas. But the whole initial thought process in the very beginning was for economic development, and it worked well. We got all these Fortune 500 companies, and it worked well, and then it morphed into something that was out of control.
This tool was used in West Hartford for Blueback Square, right? The town zoning didn't allow anything like that, but they created the special development district tool, and then they were able to customize all of the design and standards for Blueback Square to enable it to be constructed.
It's a great tool as long as it isn't abused. Bottom line, everyone.
Right.
I saw it be abused.
It could be. All right, I'm going to put yes for now. We can hash that out, but let's not totally wipe it off the board. All right. Okay, that's it for economic development. We're already almost an hour in. So let me try to pick up the pace. That is one of the more complex, and which is why it's the first one in the plan, because we know it's important to the community, and it's complicated. Housing is complicated as well, but there's not a whole lot you can do on this front. So let's quickly work through that. First strategy. Fully support the development of housing in commercial districts through the expansion of mixed-use districts. And you've already created them, so I just need to say expansion.
Well, there's going to be a lot of pushback on that one.
So right now, you've approved mixed uses in on the lower section of 25. Is that correct? Within the, is it the B1 or the B2 or both?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
The idea here is, well, why not? And I think you started with a more ambitious vision for this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Why not in all commercial districts up and down 25 and 11?
That's what we originally had in mind, but we had to scale back because we had resistance from commission members, mostly.
We don't know how it's going to be received by the town.
We want to dip our toe in the pond.
Okay, so along those lines, so maybe I don't say fully support, I say continue to explore.
Explore, yeah.
Sounds better.
That would be a good way to do it.
All right, and then, so the first thing we do is after a year or so, review the effectiveness of what you've already approved. You know, what have we gotten out of it? How does it look? You know, did we get anything good? Has anything happened at all? As what, if something's been built, how do people like it? Right? And if you have success, you could use that to advocate for expanding that. Does that make sense?
Should we add a line and a right fit for Monroe?
Yeah.
Right, and then would you suggest that we review it yearly? Should we
Yeah.
put that in the plan?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that would be good.
So you don't just give up and say, all right, we did that and we don't have to think about it for 5 years, but rather let's, on an annual basis, let's come back to this and let's think about whether or not we should expand it. Okay. I'm here. I'm sensing that you're thinking like this, not a huge priority, but maybe medium.
Yeah, I would just want to change the language because
Yep.
To assess whether the regulation as they stand are adequately supportive of the development of housing in commercial districts. I mean, if it's gonna start housing, that's one thing, but we want to also reevaluate it for whether or not we think it's working with the overall plan. If that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. All right, got it. Okay. Next. And here, so I got ahead of myself, so I apologize. The first one was the rules as they are written. Is that working? You know, maybe there's a certain density thing or there's a certain way the rules are written that is working good or not so good. So the first one is just to revisit your regulations as they're written. The second part of that is to consider geographic expansion of it. And I take it you have kind of the same feelings on both?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Good. Okay, implement policies and programs designed to facilitate the development of affordable housing. And as a reminder, affordable housing in a town like Monroe means something for people who are making like $60,000 a year, right? For families, right? We're not talking about public housing complexes. And the state is really mandating you to do this homework as well. So the first step is that you as a body should work collaboratively with developers who are seeking to build affordable housing. And case in point, you have a recent proposal in front of you for senior housing that's affordable, and you have been working collaboratively with them to accommodate them. And the idea here is that that's a general policy for the town and for you as a commission, that you work collaboratively, providing those developments are located appropriately, designed appropriately to fit into Monroe. Some communities have a oppose at all costs, regardless of location, of quality of design, etc. And I don't think I think you've figured out that it doesn't really serve you well to take that position. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How much of a priority do we feel this is?
Low.
Well,
Okay. All right, at least we got one low on there. Next. Next, a part of this plan is a future land use map. But that land use map, you're not restricted to updating that once every 10 years. You can review that on an ongoing basis to figure out whether or not that map needs to be amended to support the development of affordable housing. And I encourage you to do so. So here's an example.
We're going to need an affordable housing plan in the next year or so.
You do. You do. Yeah, well, that's next. You're a step ahead, Mike. That's next. But going back to your map, if you have an applicant before you that wants to do affordable housing and it's in an area that we definitely don't identify for higher density or multifamily or affordable housing, you want to make sure that you as a body update the future land use map to reflect that and support it. It's a kind of a technical thing, but it's important to do.
So can you show us the map? Have you chosen areas other than the one
Yeah,
you're already?
well, I'll show you at the end. I've got it for you. And I had it up on the screen very briefly at the end of our last meeting, but it was late in the night. So I'll show it to you and I'll send that out with this stuff as well, okay? So I'll say, once again, yes, but it's like a low priority. The next is that you should produce and adopt an affordable housing plan that figures out how you're going to increase affordable housing in the town, which you're required to do anyway, right? So
Yeah.
When's the
acknowledging,
deadline for that? Do you know that, or Rick, do you know the deadline?
you're on mute, Rick. It's in the
Yes,
next
I'm
year or two.
2022,
Yeah,
So 1 year?
1 year.
another year. Okay. When you develop that plan, you should also review your zoning regulations to make sure that they are supportive in what the plan recommends it's trying to accomplish. So what I'm saying is there's likely to be some changes needed to your zoning regulations to accommodate the recommendations of the plan, and that you should be responsive to that. You don't have to make specific changes, but there's going to be some work to be done there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. By the lack of no's, I'm putting yes. I'll put that's kind of like a medium. Getting a plan done is like high priority. It's got to be done, and that can follow. So that's kind of medium.
What happens if the plan isn't done, Francisco?
You get slapped on the wrist by the state. It's there isn't a lot of teeth in it right now. I think maybe they can withhold some grant funding similar to if you don't do the POCD. It can make you not eligible for some state grants.
Okay.
There's not a lot of teeth to it right now, but there's also not a real high bar for it. There's not a strict set of standards on what it must contain. It likely could be 10 pages of very simple, we are going to do this, we're going to change this one zone, and that's our plan, right? So it's not a high bar.
Right. Got it. Thanks.
Okay. In developing that plan, we're saying that you should review your age-restricted residential, multifamily residential, and housing opportunity district regulations to determine, are those too stringent? Is there anything that can be done with those existing districts to support the development of affordable housing? That's an offshoot of the prior recommendation. It's just getting a little more specific. Okay. I mean, you do have some mechanisms in place already. The question is, are they working well enough? Are they too stringent? All right, your housing authority. I don't know a lot. We've met with them. They've got a pretty good operation. They've got a long waiting list. They accept a lot of people from out of town, not a lot of Monroe residents because the waiting list is so long. The question is if you see there's an opportunity to better support them in their maintenance of housing or in potentially even expanding the number of units.
Not a lot of support for that.
No, and not just you as a body, but the town as a whole. I mean, if you don't think we need to touch upon this at all, I could put a no there. If you think, yeah, maybe I could put a yes there, we make it a low priority. First person that speaks gets their way.
Francisco, I have a question.
Yeah.
This is my first POCD. In the last one that we built, was there this much focus on affordable housing? Seems like we're Or we're
Yeah,
putting a lot
no.
of effort into this?
No, there wasn't. And there's a couple reasons why we're focusing on it now, because, well, the state's gonna have you do a plan anyway, and that plan is really gonna focus on it. And we want to lay a foundation for that in this plan, right? We don't want to pretend like this is not an issue. Second being is that this is becoming a real issue for you as a community, for both seniors and young professionals. Like you're really having a hard time keeping them and accommodating them. And you really need a strategy to accommodate both ends of that spectrum.
Okay, so there's a method to our madness here.
Yeah,
I got it.
and much more so than just 10 years ago. Because you've gotten a lot older since then, and because by comparison, the cost of living has gone up in comparison to median income and wages.
Okay.
So how about, back to your housing authority, right? In the plan or out of the plan? You tell me.
In but low.
Okay. Done and
I
done.
agree.
All right, I'm sure they'll be pleased to be included. All right, that does it for housing. Is there anything in housing that we're totally neglecting? Like, I don't think you need a lot more subdivisions, right? Like, we don't need to do anything to encourage that. Anything else in housing?
No.
Okay. Facilities and services. So we're talking about town facilities such as buildings, library, town hall, other buildings, parks. Chalk Hill School would fall into this, although we have our own section of the document for Chalk Hill School. It's a special area, focus area. But municipal facilities and some services that the town provides. So our first strategy is to implement the strategic recommendations of the ongoing municipal space needs assessment. This has been ongoing for a while. Does anyone know where this process stands?
It came to a halt about a year ago, but it's still a work in progress, Francisco.
So maybe it needs to be finalize and implement.
Yes.
That sounds good.
Okay. Now let's get into the details. How do we do that? All right. I'm a step ahead of you guys. I forgot about this. The first selectman's office needs to finalize it. So we already got that. Yes. Okay. How much of a priority is this?
I think it's high.
Yeah, I think it is. It's really important to be on top of this and really understand your facility needs.
I agree, it's high.
Okay.
Yeah, at the staff level, I agree.
I agree. We're good. Hi.
All right, next. There isn't a working committee for this though, right?
No, it hasn't been.
What's that, Rick?
It hasn't been created yet.
Okay, so you need a committee that's tasked with like seeing this through, and it's not enough just to like do the study, right? There's got to be someone there that can follow through on the things that need to be done. That's part of the package. All right, and then the next part of it is to actually dedicating the financial resources necessary to implement the plan. And are we agreed that that needs to be done?
Yes.
Yes.
And so we know that actually getting our heads wrapped around it is a high priority. What about actually doing what it says? Is that a high priority?
Yes.
It needs to be prioritized. Everything can't happen at once.
Right. And so I'm asking you medium or high, low priority. That's really for my own purposes. The way we're going to express this in the plan is going to be, we're going to assign some time frames to this, like near, mid, long term.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, this is ongoing, really.
And ongoing. Yeah, thank you, Mike. And ongoing. Next part is conduct an ADA assessment of municipal facilities. I don't think that the space needs assessment is taking a look at accessibility. I think it's just about how much space various departments need. Is that your understanding?
Yes,
Okay, this is something Department of Justice actually requires you to do that nobody gets in trouble for until you get sued. And the idea here is, all right, you need to understand if there's anything you should be doing to improve access and what it is, and then make some as long as you're making progress towards that, even if it's slow, then it can help shield you from lawsuits. So once we're saying first get the space needs assessment done, and then move on to the ADA assessment. Town hall and the library were actually have already been done. So there, whatever other facilities are out there, and you don't have too many other facilities, should be studied.
Okay, I'd put yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, and this is probably maybe a medium priority because it's obviously you're getting by as it stands right now. And then finally, you need to commit funding to this stuff, right?
Yes.
Just like, okay. Next, develop a Parks and Recreation master plan and expand, enhance facilities in according with the plan. Now, I know there's ongoing work at Wolf Park, but you don't have a system-wide master plan for where should we build other facilities, what other parks need attention, do we need to improve programming or change programming? Do you see value in conducting a planning process specifically aimed at that?
Does Parks and Rec currently not work on this?
Not do what?
Does Parks and Recs, put any of their attention towards this at this?
yeah, Rob, they're working on Wolf Park as we speak, but that is for a planned expansion for fields.
Yeah.
What Francisco saying is a comprehensive nature, not only for Wolf Park, but townwide.
I think that we should look into that.
It's worthy.
What's that?
It's worthy to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, so I know we're pointing to a lot of planning, affordable housing plan and this plan, and I've got a couple of other plans I'll be pointing to. But when you think about, planning costs money, so maybe you spend $50,000 on a Parks and Rec master plan. But you could easily spend $50,000 on a basketball court that you didn't really need because no one asked for it, and the trends aren't heading in that direction because you didn't really study the issue, right? So that's the value of master planning. It's really, you're spending a little bit of money, but you're doing things the smart way, and that's the value. And the danger, of course, is we're constantly planning and not doing anything. And so there's a fine line to walk there. But generally speaking, you're being fiscally responsible and you're being a good steward when you're doing your homework, and that's what planning is. So yes, I'm guessing it's not like a real high priority though, since there's ongoing work right now, but it should be done at some point. So what do you think, low?
Yeah. All right.
So here are the various parts of that, and these will all likely fall in line with the strategy itself. Is you take a look at actual facility and programming needs as part of that, and then complete the ongoing improvements at Wolf Park. We know they're kind of halfway through, and there's some things that have been designed that aren't yet funded, whether it be parking or irrigation or some other things like that. So I'm thinking that's more of a priority because you're halfway through it. So the idea is see it through and commit to what you're already doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think high.
Okay. We don't want to suggest that the Parks and Rec Department should take a step back and whoa, let's look at everything and let's take the eye off the ball of Wolf Park. We don't want to suggest that at all. We want to say, hey, see this through. This is important. But once you do that, then take a step back and look at your whole system and figure out how it fits in. All right. Here's a need that I see, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you really don't have any little playgrounds scattered through town. Like all your eggs are in that one basket, more or less. And you have very few little playgrounds in other corners of the town. And depending what corner of the town you're in, it can take a little while to get to Wolf Park. Do you see any value in advocating for smaller playgrounds, little tot lot, little strip of grass for kids to throw a frisbee or football? Do you see any value in that in other parts of town beyond what you already have?
Although Francisco, you got to recognize all the schools because they have green spaces.
Yeah.
And they are used.
Yeah, true, but not all of them have actual
It's
playgrounds.
informal. It's not formal.
Right. And you, of course, can't use them while school's in session. And I mean, most of your kids are there already, but if you're a mom with a toddler, right, it's not an option for you while school's in.
I do think there's a value to it. Most people find the areas that we have now, and they're pretty much centrally located. And another need, although I'm not a dog person, but people have talked about, they would love to see, a dog park around.
Okay, I put yes and low. How's that?
And I don't think these, initiatives are necessarily, overly expensive to do,
Right, and we're not compelling anyone to do this. These are things that the town should be thinking about. And it may be that Parks and Rec Commission. Do you have a Parks and Rec Commission?
Yes.
Yeah, right. That they meet and they spend a little bit of time studying this on their own, and maybe they do their own plan internally. It's just a focused effort to do some homework, and they drive around, they took a look at their facilities, and they do their own online survey and ask people, and then maybe they figure out they don't really need to do anything else. But the point is that you should be thinking about this stuff. All right, and here that the town should provide the necessary funding should a consultant be needed to assist with the plan. So it doesn't compel it. The last item is to explore opportunities to improve access to Lake Zor for recreation.
Yes.
Yeah. And low, medium, high?
I think it's high. I think it's just such an untapped
Yeah,
gem.
I agree.
I do recall that from our discussions. And that would be part of something you can undertake in a master plan. That could be part of it. Okay. Item 4 is to strategically implement the recommendations of MetroCog's 2019 Hazardous Mitigation Plan. And I think it probably is a good idea, right? You want to be prepared for events. And high, medium, low?
Low.
So
Medium.
as we pull down the list, maybe there's something that's a little higher than others. Well, we only have two. Part of that is to conduct a townwide hydrologic analysis for flooding and stormwater conveyance needs. This was in that plan, and this came up in discussion as well in our focus group. Is flooding a big concern for the town?
I don't think it is.
I don't think so. We're kind of.
Yeah, the Route 25 drainage improved the flooding there.
Yeah. So it's in the plan. And we only have a couple items. So I want to say yes, but maybe it's a low priority. So it's like if you get around, you find yourself with some engineering money or planning money, and DPW is like, hey, we've got these issues. We really need to understand what's going on. We've got a placeholder here for it. Okay. The next one is for the Office of Emergency Management should work with the Public Building Commission and Board of Selectmen and find. This is some of the language that came out of their plan, and I don't think they're getting it quite right. But so I'm going to take that out because it doesn't quite reflect what it is you need to do, I don't think. So we'll just stick with that one. There was one, I know what happened. I had another item, I copied the wrong item in. It was to provide a generator at Massac High School for as an emergency shelter to make it compliant, and that came up in discussion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe I put it somewhere else here too. How much of a priority is that?
I would say
High,
medium.
medium, low? Medium?
Medium.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. The final strategy here is support energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. And I think this makes a lot of sense because this is really, we might as well entitle this Save Money, right? It could be the title of this, is Save, Waste Less Money. So let me explain why. So I'm going to put a yes there because I think it's important. And I'm going to say high because without these measures in place every month, particularly in a cold week like this, you're losing money. The town should include energy efficiency and renewable energy projects in the town's capital improvement plan. So and the reason being is that we did West Hartford's Plan of Conservation and Development. They have been very proactive on this in recent years. They set up a committee. There's a person responsible for this, and they've reduced their energy cost across town facilities, for which they have far more than you, and schools by a considerable degree, like by 30%, right? And that comes from solar panels on roofs and really intelligent energy management systems that allows like one person from their smartphone to control the energy settings, temperature settings in a building so that, let's say you have a snow day, well, that the heat isn't running at 68 degrees all day long because there's like an intelligent system that's set up that gets automatically triggered by the school schedule, or someone just dials it down. And guess what? You save $10,000 that day, right? So that's the justification for that. And by building it into the capital improvement program, you can ensure that it's something that gets done, and you very quickly get return on investment. Does that make sense?
Who takes the lead on that?
So in some of these, I haven't quite figured out who needs to lead them. I'll plug that in, and in some parts a question for you too. I think First Selectman's office, council maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Did anybody look at the ROI on that investment with West Hartford?
I don't know how long the payback was. It's all financed. It's either financed through the installers of the systems or financed through bonding measure. But I think the way the math works out, that right away, whatever they save, it is more than what their payments are on the technology. Like, so in month one. And then, of course, once the technology is paid for, you continue to have those savings without the only cost being maintaining it. All right, so I'll say yes. Priority level.
Medium.
Medium. So the first part, I could probably condense this into one. The first part is committing the resources, and the second part is over actually doing it. And I think I'll just collapse this into one. So that's for town facilities, and then that the town actually coordinates with Monroe Public Schools. Maybe the town does this first, has success, and then says to the school department, hey, this is working for us. Like, let's get you involved too with the school buildings. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, and that would be phased. So what we do in the phasing is we say town goes first and then work with the schools. All right, that's it. Anything else on facilities and services? Public safety, I know EMS is getting a new building.
It's still a maybe.
Still?
Well, it's out to bid currently. We just went out to bid. Bids are due February 16th.
Anything else on, I went through my notes on public safety. Anything else on, you got a lot of firehouses, that's for sure. Anything else on public safety needs? I know the police department said they had upgrades a few years ago and they already feel like they're bursting at the seams. Should we put something in there for them? Anyone? Are you in fear of speaking out on?
Well, no, I think we should put something in for the police department because their needs change all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do have the fire study. If we wanted to mention something for the fire department, maybe just following the recommendations of the fire study.
Oh, good. Yep. Okay. So I'll fill this in later. Okay, I got it. I'll build the rest in later. All right, that does it for facilities. We've only got 2 more to go, right? Transportation and infrastructure. Number 1, improves traffic safety. I guess I could say a little more there. Throughout town. It's not just one area, right? Are we agreed on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why would you disagree with this? Priority.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, hi.
Okay. How do we do that? Conduct a townwide traffic and safety study to identify priorities for improvements. How does that sound?
Didn't you just do that? Or was
Did
that
you?
just a 11220, a 11125?
This is 25-111.
I know one of the police officers or captains has done a bit of research into hotspots, at least.
So yeah, I mean, that data is pretty easy to come by. But so you know where you have issues, but then you still don't know what those issues are or how to fix them. And the idea here is this, a study like this, where are the problems? Why is it a problem? How do we fix it? What's the priority? That sort of thing.
Identify the problems first. There's a number of them in town.
And so that, yeah, that would be the justification for actually doing a study and a plan, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of priority?
Aye.
All right, it's hard to say that safety is not a priority, right? Safety first, that's why I put it first. Work with MetroCog to obtain grant funding for high priority safety areas identified by the study. There are grant programs, federal and state, and those administered by the state, such as local road accident reduction program. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what the status of the funding of some of those programs are right now, with the federal government being a mess. But the idea here is that you're likely not going to be able to pay for all this on your own, and that you're active in applying for grants. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
And MetroCog will help you with that. I mean, that's one of the things they do. So maybe study first, and then kind of a medium priority do the follow-up. And then finally, there's already discussion ideas about traffic safety and traffic calming measures in Monroe Center and Stepney. Do you think those should be an area of focus of the townwide traffic safety study, or is it just like everywhere?
It's everywhere, but Stephanie is a mess.
Okay. What about Monroe? Is Monroe Center all right?
No, I know they've had complaints about speed through there.
So the question is it worth calling out these two areas specifically because they're real hot spots in town? Or
I would say yes.
okay. All right, I'll put a medium there because the first part of this is just getting that study done. All right, this came straight from DPW in our discussions with them, and which is conduct an evaluation of small bridges and culverts. They have a lot of those in town with needs, and they don't fully know what needs to be improved and what the condition of all of them are. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. And priority?
That should be a high priority, just in case something
Okay.
wrong.
So there's been funding earmarked for this, but there's just been no action on it. Is the issue?
Yes and high.
Yes.
So to pull the trigger on it is what we're saying. And then whatever improvements it's pointing to, actually fund them, put that into the capital improvement plan or program.
Yes.
All right. Improvement and expansion of the town's pedestrian network. Right? A lot of people seem to think that you need more sidewalks, better connected sidewalks. Do we agree on that?
Yes.
Yeah. I agree on it. Just the way that the have been developed.
Okay. What kind of priority is it?
Medium.
Okay. Correcting some wording here. All right. And how do we do that? Well, first, we really DPW should identify areas. Let's start with your existing network before you place too much emphasis on building new sidewalks. Is take a look at what you have already and identify if there's any needs for repair that the town is responsible for. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in Monroe, if you have a sidewalk in front of your house, as a property owner, are you responsible for fixing that if it's broken? Do you know what the policy is?
Yeah, it is. And then there's a reimbursement provision,
Oh, there is, really? Okay.
a percentage. It's not high.
Okay, all right. So the point being is that DPW should know where the areas of need are and know, work with property owners and be on top of that. How much of a priority is that, is repairing what you have?
High priority.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, now is expansion. And this is an expensive thing to do, so most towns your size with your kind of network aren't taking on much of this yourself. It's usually coming by way of grants. By example, the sidewalks that were provided on Route 25 a few years ago, extending up to Monroe Elementary, did those come through a grant, or did the town pay for those? Did the state actually pick up the bill? Does anyone
Yes.
know?
State.
Okay.
And the elderly housing proposal, the town engineer is recommending sidewalks along the front. So that's
And
something
they would build that out, right? They would build that out. Yeah. So this says that the Planning and Zoning Department would work with MetroCog to pursue grant funding to build new network, right?
Yes.
Through programs such as community connectivity and LOTSIP. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
a high
it's kind of a
priority.
no-brainer. Like if someone's willing to pay for it, and at most, the town match at most is 20% on these, and sometimes none. This says the town should provide, also provide funding. So the question is, does the town also provide any sort of annual budget for repairing, replacing, or expanding sidewalks? You know, similar to your pavement restoration program you have every year. Should the town build something in every year?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe they should.
I mean, it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands, but right, even $100,000 would probably go get a decent amount of work done every year. A priority? Medium, high?
Medium.
Okay, yeah, because first let's see if you get someone else to pay for it, right?
Right.
Okay. And then finally, do you feel like your zoning regulations or subdivision regulations need any additional language to get developers to build sidewalks?
No, I think we have that in there. It's just
Yeah,
that
the language is in there. It's up to the commission to say yeah.
It's discretionary, but you can require it. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. You have that in place already. I'll just delete it. Okay. Next is enhance and increase maintenance of the town's roadways. Based upon your pavement schedule, I could tell you that every year you fall a little more and more behind. You just, for the miles of roadway you have and the miles of roadway you get done, it requires like your roads to last like 25 years, which they do not. So enhance and increase maintenance of the town's roadways. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Priority?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So that starts once again with doing your homework. So I know, you know, in speaking with DPW director, they know where the issues are and they have complaints and they kind of know where the issues are, but there really isn't a really good inventory or map. That information really isn't organized as it could be. So does it make sense to ask them to kind of develop and maintain a pavement conditions map and list?
Yes.
Okay, priority?
Well, it should be a high priority because then we'll know what roads are bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you start. That's the easy part, isn't it? Okay. And then they really need to figure out, and they get what they get right now, and they make the most out of it. But they should probably do some real homework on what is truly the annual cost of maintenance of all this infrastructure, and really understand what the true cost is. Do you see a need for that?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. High, medium, or low?
That should be a high because some of our roads are falling apart.
Right. Okay. And then finally, we're saying that the town needs to provide adequate funding to, so basically this says spend more money on roads. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we say adequate, but what we really mean is it needs to spend more. Priority?
I believe that it's, well, medium to high, but, you know, all depends on the funding.
All right, so let's put it at medium. First, you do your homework, and then maybe once you understand the true cost, that can be figured out. All right, strategy 5 is to continue to expand and improve the Pequannock River, Houstonic River, or Houstonic Rail Trail. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Priority?
Well, it's high. We have a grant right now for phase 2.
Yeah. Okay. And is that for improvements from Maple Drive to Wolf Park, or is that offshoot that goes down, I forget which street, Pepper Street or whatever it is?
Yeah, Pepper Street, yep.
Okay, so there's still a gap to close by DPW, right? That's
Yes.
not included?
It may be, I'm not sure.
All right. So I'll say yes. What kind of priority is that, though?
I think it's high. A lot of people use that trail.
Medium?
Mike, you like it, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. And then, so that's expanding the network, you know, filling those gaps. And then there's the question of the rest of the trail and the condition of it, right? With I believe there are some drainage issues, surface quality issues. Is that right?
In the
Yes.
northern parts, yeah.
Okay. So the other part of this is improve the rest of the existing trail. So yes, what kind of priority?
Medium.
Medium. Let me ask you this. Would you rather see what you have now improved or first, or would you rather try to connect the gaps in the trail first and then go back and fix up the rest?
I'd rather see it connected for safety purposes.
Yeah. Anyone else? Connect first. Okay. All right. I've got more here. Support and advocate for the implementation of the recommendations of the Route 25-111 study that are beneficial to the town of Monroe. So I don't know how many of you were familiar with that study. We were on the team that did it. I was involved in bicycle and pedestrian recommendations. Does anyone have thoughts as to how important some of those recommendations were that were in that study?
Well, what were the recommendations?
A lot of heavy on the traffic. Part of it was to connect the Pequannock River Greenway or Trail. Part of it was to expand sidewalk network, although that was mostly in Trumbull. Part of it was to improve transit. A lot of it was on traffic in Stepney and some other parts of town. Major improvements to intersections, like big improvements. So do we, I know you aren't as familiar with the study as I am. So let me first get into some of the details of that before we vote on it as a whole. Part of that study was access management, which I worked on that component as well. And all about making sure that new developments don't have too many driveways and driveways aren't too big. And that when you have a property owner that comes in for any major work on their site, that maybe they shrink driveways, reduce driveways. Do you feel like your zoning adequately covers that?
What do you mean reduce driveways?
Like a gas station that's got, they have 200 feet of frontage and 150 feet of that is driveway, right? When they probably only need about 60 feet to function.
You mean curb cuts?
Curb cuts, yes, curb cuts. Thank you.
And they should be decreased, just the study.
Yeah, what the study points to is that the more you have, the wider they are, the more linear feet of curb cut, the more opportunities there are for crashes, the less pedestrian friendly it is, the worse traffic flows.
Okay.
So we had developed recommendations in the study to consolidate driveways and to make sure that your zoning encourage or discourages excessive curb cut widths and number of access points.
Would we do that by like promoting shared parking for units?
Yeah, well, you could, by example, the zoning would say in commercial district, you're limited to 60 total feet of curb cut or you can at most have 2 curb cuts located within 100 feet of each other. It's something to that effect, so that it's just not a free-for-all.
And Ryan, you encourage interconnection between parcels.
Yeah.
And that too, you say, if you're building a new parking lot, then you should coordinate with the adjacent parking lot to see, try to provide an internal connection. You don't have to force it, but you force them to explore it.
They might not cooperate.
Well,
Yeah, they might not, but you made them think about it. You made them see if it was possible. You made them maybe contact the other property owner, right? You try. This is about trying.
Is this on
And so-
111?
So what I'm trying to get at is, do you think your zoning regulations could be improved to discourage excessive curb cuts?
yes.
All right, how much of priority is that? Low?
I think like a medium.
Medium? You're not losing sleep over it, but this is a good practice. Okay. One of the recommendations of that plan was to expand bus service. Route 19X, which is on 111 right now, turns around somewhere near, was it the Stop and Shop that's up there?
Yeah.
The idea we recommended in the plan, and this was actually my recommendation, that it continue all the way up to Town Hall and loop around the roundabout and then head back south. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, because you get the people that work at Big Y, in that shopping center there.
Yeah, it's only another, I don't know, a mile or so, or maybe it's 2. But it gets you all the way up to the library and Town Hall, and it's a very easy turnaround there with the roundabout. So yes, I'm priority level.
I feel like it's pretty
high.
low.
Well, you briefly had bus service on Route 25. Is anyone missing that? And do you feel you need to advocate for the return of that service?
I think we
I see a
do.
lot of people walking on 25.
Yeah, if we're going to be putting in that senior housing, it very well might be necessary.
So they cut it. Obviously, they had some funding issues. I don't know what the ridership was like. It wasn't around for very long. So yes, priority level.
Say yes, priority. Medium.
Okay.
Medium?
Medium? All right. And finally, the Route 25 111 study had a bunch of big intersection improvements that I talked about. And you know, you may want to familiarize yourself with these before we commit to this, but the idea here is, do you think any of those ideas should move forward, and should the town be proactive about saying, hey, when are we going to get this done, and being active about working with MetroCog and Connecticut DOT to actually get those projects done? Or is this like, I don't know, I need to see what's in it.
Why don't you send us a copy of the report or show us where we can find it?
Yeah, you know what? I will request it, because I actually don't have, I have all the content I produced for it, and I don't have the final copy. And I went to MetroCog's website, and their link is not working, but Megan Sloan at MetroCog's been great about sending me plans that I request. So I'll get it. I'll get it and send it out to you guys.
Good.
Okay, I'll just put a question mark there for now. All right, oh, we got another number 6. I need to change that to 7. And this is, I think it's our final one. This is stormwater infrastructure. Maintain and improve stormwater infrastructure to comply with your MS4 permit requirements.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, you're mandated. How much of a priority?
Probably die.
Right. And so we got a bunch of items here. I'll try to move through them real quick. It's basically to fund and implement a repair rehab program. Right now, as I understand it, you're kind of very reactive. Something breaks, we need some money for this. How do we do it? And the idea here is that you've got you know, a funding source in place with a plan for how to do it, and you're steadily working through it. And you have some sort of policy instead of being reactive. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yes.
Yes.
Priority?
Aye.
Okay. This I hate to bore you with this technical stuff. This comes straight out of your plan. I want to make sure that our plan is supporting your stormwater management plan. In that, basically, the town's required to disconnect about 2% of the water it dumps right now into the Pequannock and other waterways. And one way of doing that is to look towards developers to try to manage more of their on-site stuff on-site rather than dumping it into the town stormwater system. Right, so we're just saying, you know, it's something that needs to be done. This comes straight out of your stormwater management plan. So do we agree?
Yes.
Priority?
All right.
Aye.
I think we've been doing that anyway, right, Rick?
What's that?
We've been doing this anyway already, right?
Absolutely. Rain gardens, you've seen it. Wetlands,
Yeah.
you do it.
Okay. Another specific recommendation out of that plan is to for the town to be more proactive with street sweeping to keep debris, sediment out of your water bodies, and to have a regular schedule. I think right now maybe you just do it in the spring after the winter, but this would suggest that you have a more regular schedule, greater frequency. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no?
And finally, if you think we're getting like way into the weeds with our plan on this, then I could compress all of this and just say that the town should do what the stormwater management plan says, right? If that makes
Well, that
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay,
that would-
let me,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, sorry for getting into the weeds on you. So that holds true for all of this stuff. All right, I'll consolidate that into one line item. All right, so that enables us to move forward to our last major topic area, and the rest of this I could tell is going to be homework. Environmental resources. Number one, support. The town does have an open space plan that the Conservation Commission developed, and we should support the recommendations of that plan. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rick, are you gonna get that plan out to us? Yes?
Oh,
About a yes?
absolutely. And Barbara, you can talk.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so we have a draft. Hopefully it's fairly final with Conservation Commission. And we did send that to Rick. Did you see that today, Rick?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did. And I forwarded to Francisco, and
Okay.
he's very appreciative.
Great. Okay, do you want any more information at the moment, or do you want us to send it out to everyone? How do you want
No,
to
I'll
handle
take
it?
care of that, Barbara.
Okay.
So
Okay,
I'll send that out to everyone.
I did.
Rick, if I may talk, this is Karen Bernaska. My intent is to have the Conservation Commission vote on the draft at our meeting on February 11th. So I would appreciate it if you would, I mean, if you keep it as a draft, but it will not be a quote unquote official plan from the Conservation Commission until after our vote on it.
Yep,
Okay.
understood.
So let's make it a high priority to support that plan.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have some recommendations that are in line with that plan, but maybe a little more targeted. And this basically says that the commission should develop a plan for maintenance and uses for Monroe's open space. So you have all this open space inventory that is town owned, and I'm not talking about parks here, but rather passive open space. And so the question is, if you need some sort of plan for how to maintain those and how they should be used in the future, and whether or not you provide access, that sort of thing. Is there work that needs to be done there?
I think there is. To my knowledge, we don't have anything like that at this point, but we would need to work with Parks and Rec
Okay.
and whoever else in the town would be appropriate to make those determinations. But that would be, it's not part of the open space plan because it's just going to require a lot more work. So we'd like to get the open space plan done, and then we'll come back and do that management plan.
So maybe that's a medium priority, like first focus on the open space acquisition plan, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, how about this one? The town should commit funding on an annual basis for the acquisition of open space for the purposes of conservation.
Yes, definitely.
Could it be committed? Is there also grants for open space?
Yeah, I think I have a line item on pursuing grants as well. But
Yeah.
the question is whether or not you're entirely relying upon grants and donations and that sort of thing, or if the town should actually carve out a line item in the budget for this.
Okay. Well, with grants, normally, with a lot of many ways, you do have to put in some of the money. So the grant would not cover the whole cost
Right.
of the
You
property.
still need some seed money.
Right.
Right. Still need your match.
It could be 50%. It could be even more than that. It really depends on the pool of grant money and then how many projects are approved. And then you get a portion of the pool. So you could get approved, but get a very small amount. So you need to be prepared to fund the rest of it.
And Francisco,
Yep.
the town council resurrected the open space and land acquisition committee.
Yeah, I've got that right here. Thank you. Yep. All right, so we'll,
Nice to get a line item in the budget, but that's going to be an uphill battle. I don't know who's
Yeah.
going to take that on.
How about I put
I
that as a
mean-
medium priority? You know, maybe it doesn't
I
have to
think-
be a lot of money though, Michael. You know,
Sorry?
maybe it doesn't have to be a big number. Maybe it has to be just enough to provide a match for a grant. And maybe you get a developer to put that money in there, right? Maybe there's a fee in lieu of,
Well,
right?
we do have that fee in lieu of open space.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, that
maybe,
could be
Not a
used
lot
for it.
of, there's not a lot of subdivisions going in where that can be utilized.
yeah, well, maybe that comes back to your bigger developments and having some sort of bonus or incentive for density or whatever it may be by contributing to an open space fund, right?
We haven't seen a significant subdevelopment in many years in Monroe.
Yeah, but what about the Stevenson lumber site or another project?
We're talking about residential zones that have the fee in lieu of.
Yeah, but maybe that could work for commercial zones too. Maybe you could allow a density if they pay in.
Well, we could consider expanding that ordinance.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll get something to that effect in there. All right. Strategically acquire open space properties as recommended by the town's open space plan. There are currently 12 properties identified as good preservation candidates. And the Open Space Acquisition Committee should identify a priority, perhaps a priority among that list of priority sites. Does that make sense?
Right. Well, you know, the one thing we're looking at there, well, we certainly, I think in our own minds have priorities. They have to remain flexible because the property may not come up for
Yeah.
acquisition.
Right.
You may not be able, and you may be able to get funding on something, but something smaller. You know,
Yeah.
you can't say this is our top 5 and they're the only ones we're going to look at. So we're going to have to keep that pretty flexible to be able to move if the opportunity presents itself.
So do you think there's really any need to narrow down that list, or you just want to keep that list as the list, and then once you have an opportunity, you just grab whatever you can off the list?
Yeah, I think that's our plan, is more to have
Okay.
kind of, you know, certainly there are some that we'd love to get, but who knows if we could. But
So maybe
you know.
we don't need to narrow that list down at all. I'll just get rid of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Francisco, I have a question.
Yeah.
In the past plan of conservation development, we have got suggestions that we create a new zone, an open space zone, and rezone all the open space in town into that zone. And that zone would afford some protection to the open space because, as you well know, in the past, the water company has sold off their open space.
Yeah. There are some restrictions on that. You can't do that to private property because you're taking all value. The best you can do is have someone to have a large lot, single family house. So you can do that with town-owned property, but I think you make yourself vulnerable to a lawsuit from a private property owner if you do that.
So is there a point in doing that then, if you want to protect open space?
Yeah. Hey, Mike, if I could add something.
Yeah, Rick, go ahead.
When I was in North Branford, because of Lake Collard, the Planning and Zoning Commission created a 10-acre zone for a specific geographical area that was sensitive, and that was never challenged.
Because
That
you
was never
could
what?
still build a house though, but you need a
You
10
still
acre.
could build a house, but it's 10-acre minimum lot.
Yeah, yeah. So if you remove the ability for someone to build anything, that's when you make yourself vulnerable to a lawsuit.
Yeah,
But you
that's a
can
taking. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's considered a taking. But you can't have a very high required lot size that effectively does the same thing. So, Michael, are you suggesting that's something we need to look at, is creating an open space zone, or maybe another zoning district that establishes really, really high lot sizes?
Well, I don't know if there'd be any point in that, though.
Okay. Okay. All right. Moving on. Obtain and commit financial resources to the expansion and maintenance of town-owned open space. And let me get into the details of that so you can understand it. How do we do that? So first, we ask for the Conservation and Water Resources Commission to identify critical improvements and maintenance needed at town-owned open space properties and produce a summary of the list of needs. And this is kind of connected to that previous recommendation.
Right. Yes, it would.
So maybe I could consolidate those down into one because it's the same idea. That the commission should work with MetroCog and Southwest Conservation District to obtain grant funding. Is the commission been engaged with either entity in pursuing grants?
No, we haven't yet.
Not yet.
You see opportunity?
Several years ago, the members of the Conservation Commission did work with MetroCog to get a 319 grant in order to do some of the improvements that were recommended in the Paquonic River Initiative.
Okay.
That's quite a few years ago. So it's probably about almost 10 years ago now, I would assume.
All right. So do you see an opportunity there for that?
To get grants or to get?
Yeah, to work with MetroCog and South. I don't know how active or supportive the Southwest Conservation District can be, but to work with either of them for get grants.
We haven't yet. I haven't spoken to them about what might be available. I mean, we have some knowledge of what might be available. We haven't, because a lot of grants, I don't know how it works through like MetroCog or Southwest, but a lot of the grants actually you have to put money up front for appraisals and things, and we really have had very little money. We have a little bit at the moment.
Well, that goes back to having a budget, right? A pool of money to work.
Exactly.
So let's say yes, and maybe what kind of priority would that be?
High.
For priority. I mean, that would be, I would say high. I think it would come right after, we get the open space plan approved. We'd start looking at that.
And then the final part of that is the town. So you have part of a budget that's just to help you identify your needs, to help you get grants and that sort of thing. And that the town also establishes a budget for the actual ongoing maintenance. Do you see the need for that, or do you just need one pool of money that you can pull from for everything?
Again, I think we need to speak to Parks and Rec and see what, they have a lot to do already. So we'd have to put that management plan together and look at everything to see what's needed.
Okay, so maybe a management plan is needed first.
Yes, definitely. An assessment of the properties, what would be accessible, what we think should not be accessible.
Okay. All right, so we'll focus on what needs to happen first then. All right, we're almost there, folks. We're almost there. Adopt and implement low impact policies and practices. Okay, and what does that mean? First, lid practices, and Rick said you guys are doing a lot of this stuff already. The question is whether or not your zoning subdivision regulations are supportive enough of low impact development practices like pervious pavements, rain gardens, all that sort of thing.
We just need to tweak it a little bit, Francisco.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's say yes, maybe it's a low priority, and you just need to adjust to improve it or adjust it. How about How about sustainable practices like actually capturing rainwater, reducing water usage, reducing use of chemicals, improving recycling, and reducing solid waste at town facilities and parks? Is there potential there?
Yes. I think so.
Priority?
Medium.
Okay, good. And working with Monroe Public Schools to do all the same thing. Do you see a role for the town to be really proactive in working with them, or do we just want to leave them to do their own stuff?
Yeah, they're going to do their own stuff anyway.
Okay, okay. So do we agree that we focus on town facilities? We let them run their own show? Okay, get rid of that. Continue, should say, to enhance the protection of environmentally sensitive areas, or continue the protection of environmentally sensitive areas. So first is staffing. Do you feel like the town has adequate staffing to manage, respond to environmental issues, conservation issues, et cetera? Are there any staffing deficits there?
There's no staff.
Yeah, and considering what we just went through with the quarry, Francisco, we had to outsource with Southwest and a consultant.
Okay. So do you think that there, I mean, what can we do here? Is it that boards or commissions need more resources? Is that there needs to be is there a department that needs more resources? Is there a staff person that's needed?
But for something like this, you really rely on the expertise of a consultant.
Okay.
And both the regulations have a provision where the applicant pays for it.
Okay. Okay. So we want to ensure that consultant expertise is available and consulted. All right, I'll figure, so that maybe this is not a high priority because you're doing it already. All right, I'll figure out how to word that. And the next big part of this is a joint review. Is that together as you as a commission, Conservation Commission, Wetlands Commission, all get together with all your regs, maybe a special committee or task force, and say, what do we need to do to improve all of our regs to better protect our environmentally sensitive areas? Do you think there's any work that needs to be done there?
Yeah, there is, and I think there are a couple of specifics you should probably put in there.
Okay.
Like steep slope, ridge line protection, things like that have been in our plan for 20 years now, and we haven't moved in that direction.
Okay. Okay.
Buffer, Pequannock River buffer, we've talked about that for about 10 to 15 years now.
Okay.
It's just a matter of having the manpower in the land use department to put these regs together and implement them.
Sure. Sure. And then oversee them. Yeah. Priority level for that?
High.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Michael. And then related to that, this is really a subset of that, is the Pequannock River itself and improving water quality. And let me, well, we have one, and here's an example where I've managed, unlike the MS4 stuff, I just said, implement the recommendations of the Pequannock River Watershed plan and work with the Southwest Conservation District to figure out how to do that. Does
And
that make sense?
a buffer zone is pretty much what is needed, and that's one thing that we can do as a commission.
Okay. Priority level for the Pequannock River is also high?
Yes.
Okay. And last one. Improve stewardship of forests on town-owned open space, town-owned land. Yes?
Yes.
What kind of priority is this?
Well, what do you mean by stewardship?
All right, so let me go ahead and show you. Here's what I mean. First of all, you have a couple of issues. You have all your ash trees are dying. It's creating immediate roadside needs. Your forestry budget is spent trying to keep up with these things. There's no real game plan for how to manage that issue in any of the town-owned properties and any of the forests on town-owned properties. And you also have invasive species issues. And there's no plan for how to address these things. You're just reacting.
Wasn't that a regional issue, though?
Well, it is, but it's your property. And there's no regional funding to help you manage it.
Well,
the question is whether or not
it's being invaded by these species. I mean, we can't put a wall up around the town.
Right. There are measures. I'm not a forester, so I can't speak too intelligently about this, but I know there are proactive things that the town can do. There are areas that are more critical than other areas where you can do some treatment or abatement or selective cutting, but you would have no idea where to start unless you did a forest management plan that figured out whether or not anything was a real priority or whether or not you had any threats. By example, you might have some areas that are still pristine and maybe they're getting encroached upon by some invasive species. And if you were to act now to remove those invasive species, to cut an open buffer, then you could protect the quality of those areas that are still pristine. That's an example. Now, I don't know that to be the case, but that's exactly what a forest management plan would enable you to figure out.
Right. So this is Barbara, just to jump in there. I think we definitely need something along that line. Again, it's a matter of getting somebody out there to do it. I mean, I can identify a lot of the invasive plants that are out there. We have barberry with burning bush throughout. When you go walk on the trails, they're everywhere. There's Japanese knotweed and Japanese stiltgrass. There's all sorts of things. Most people don't know what they are. They have them in their yard, so they don't realize they're a problem. They've seeded themselves into forested areas. There are a lot of towns that do spend time going out there, and it's generally a volunteer effort, but somebody organizes it and they go out and they pull the plants out and they keep after it year after year to keep on top of it, because they'll certainly get reseeded back into the woods. But I think it's something that we definitely need to do, because there are areas that are just completely covered in barberry, which is one, it just shouldn't be in the forests. It also harbors ticks, because mice like it, and the ticks live on the mice, and that's where they get the Lyme disease. So it's not just a aesthetic thing. They take the place of native plants that should be out there, and it could be a health hazard. I mean, certainly with Lyme disease, it is. So I think we should have some sort of plan. It's a matter of who does it, how do we get there, and it would normally be a volunteer effort.
Yeah, and sometimes various schools, like Yale School of Forestry, sometimes you can be fortunate enough to have a university that will do the plan for you if they have a program.
Francisco, I would suggest that you coordinate with the park ranger, who is also our tree warden.
Right, yeah, he's the one that said you needed this.
Yes, he knows what's there. And he works with Yale School of Forestry.
Okay. All right, so I'm thinking this sounds like what, a low or medium priority?
I think medium. I think high.
Medium or high, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a real threat.
Get worse.
All right. I had to convince you guys that you needed it. Now you're telling me it's high. Okay. All right. I got it. All right. So we're going to leave it there tonight, but we still have some real big nuts to crack. I have no idea what you guys want me to do or want to do with Chalk Hill School, Stevenson Lumber, Pepper Street Business Park, right? We've identified these as special areas of focus, so we want to call those out in a special area of the plan and provide some real guidance for these properties. The trouble is, I have no idea what that guidance is or where we're going, and so it's a little late for us to cover that now. But I really need some input from you. So once again, I'm going to send you this file. I'll send it to you as a PDF and as an Excel spreadsheet, and you respond in whatever way is easiest for you. You know, you type right in the spreadsheet, you mark up a PDF, or you just send an email and says, hey, this is what we need to do, or we need to reword this, or I said this was a priority, but I don't think it should be in the plan, or we totally glossed over this. Where was this? This is missing. So that's what I need from you. And let me go back to the presentation. And likewise, I will send you this future land use map. And once again, we find ourselves at the very end of this meeting and past the end of this meeting, and I'm showing it to you again. So I'll send you this, and you can take your time in reviewing it. And so here's our next steps. I need you to review all of this and get back to me about Chalk Hill School and the other sites by, and I'm giving you 2 weeks here, by Friday the 12th. And at which point, I'm going to turn this thing around in a few days, get back and package it all up into the plan document. So you'll get your hands on the entire plan with all of these strategies and actions built into it for your review. And then I give you 5 days to get back to me with any final comments on the entire plan as a whole, the whole package. And then presumably, because we've gone through this quite a bit by that point, it might just be little things, right? In which case I can turn that around in a couple of days. And then we're going to submit this to council, first selectmen, and to MetroCog for comments. Okay, and that gets us onto this schedule, right? That puts us right here. And then we're in, we're off to the races, right? The clock starts.
Yeah. Francesco, can I have the floor for a second?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to take the time of the elephant in the room tonight. There's been some apprehension when it came to recommendations on, priority levels and that kind of thing. I've been trying to be conservative on my recommendations, as I want this plan to have a certain attainability factor. I want us to be able to look at this in 10 years and say, wow, we were able to accomplish these things. We think we may have gotten a little overambitious. Funding is obviously at the forefront of a lot of this. And in order for us to accomplish the goals that we put forward tonight, I feel like we run our tax rates up by 20 mils. I don't know what other people's thoughts are here, but all of these different initiatives and things that we put high priorities on are expensive. So we may want to, consider that when we're coming to our final draft on this.
Yeah, so you make a great point, right? It's a balancing act. These things are important to quality of life, important for managing and for good stewardship. but they cost, and it's this constant struggle we're in, and it's not just inherent in the plan. It's the town struggles with this every year in the budget process. And I agree. We want to set you up for success and not failure. So we do need to be probably a little more selective, and I'll take a first cut at trying to prioritize things. But a big part of what we're recommending is really to be smart about things, to really study things and to do plans. And those cost a little bit of money, but not a lot of money. And in that process, you figure out that there are things that you could do in a smarter way that won't be costly, that might save you money. And you can be more strategic in the way you do things. And that's being informed and being strategic is always something that ends up being fiscally responsible. And then part of that is when you've done your homework, you have a far greater chance of getting grant funding to help you do things. And if you haven't done that work, your chances are far lower. So I hear you, and I'm going to try to strike a balance in that with this document, and that I acknowledge that's a challenge and a legitimate concern.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that does it for the evening. Is there any other final comments or questions before I hand it over to Michael to adjourn?
All right, I think you did a good job, Francisco, in presenting it to us.
Thank you, Michael. You guys, we got a lot of work done, so it's good work on everyone's part. I appreciate you moving right along with things at a rapid pace.
Yeah, and staff will follow up with the distribution, okay?
Yeah, Rick, I'll get you everything by tomorrow morning, so you can get it out right away.
All right, well, thank you all for attending. I'd like to especially thank the other members, non-P and Z members, Karen, Barbara, and Jonathan, for being here tonight. And we'll, at this point, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion,
Second.
need a second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is hereby adjourned.
Okay,
Good night.
have a good weekend.
Good night. Thank you, Francisco.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.